So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm just curious, who has already done their swatch and gotten their swatch, if anyone? And if you haven't started swatching, that's okay because we were going to talk about swatching anyway. If you watch my community tab, you saw I was actually working on more swatches this weekend just to see what kind of fabric I might like the best, which hook and yarn combination I like the best. Because even though my yarn is saying that it is a sport weight yarn, it feels very not sport weighty. It's very close to a worsted. And actually, I think that might have been why this one was on clearance at the time, is because when you actually look at the run tag, it was saying a light worsted. So that made me wonder if that's why these were on clearance for like $2 a ball at one point. But I'm happy with what I've gotten for my gauge swatch. So what I personally did was I chained 35 and then I worked in pattern. It's just you're only going to do, I believe it's like 5 or 6 repeats. So this gives you a nice idea of what you'll end up with. Okay, so no, oh, that's okay. It's okay if you haven't swatched. That's why we're here. So you may not finish your swatch in the hour or so that we're going to be here, and that's totally fine. I don't know that I could do a swatch in an hour, to be perfectly honest. So this is just one of those things where, I know there's like two camps of thinking of: either don't swatch and find out, and maybe feel regret, or maybe feel like you got very lucky. And then I've done that for too many times. And now I'm like, okay, I don't want to waste hours of my time to be totally off. So that's just something that I've done. And I know it sucks to make a swatch. We all like, we see a project and we want to get started, right? So I heard something and I really wish I could remember who on earth said this or where I read it, or I don't know where this came from. But they talked about swatching as it's like your first date with the project and the yarn, especially if you haven't used the yarn before. And when you think of it that way, that you're just getting to play and you're like just playing around on a first date, it makes it feel a lot less sucky, in my opinion. And then you can play around with it. I've laundered them before just to see what happens, particularly some ones that I expected to felt or whatever. So, just some things to consider. So if we're just watching here along, that's fine. Go ahead. If you haven't already started chaining, you can go ahead and chain your 35. If you're just watching along too, just because, that's also totally fine. If you want to swatch later, if you are feeling bold and you want to skip the swatch and you already know what size you were planning to make, go for it. So no judgment either way if you decide not to swatch. I just personally felt like I had wasted more time than I wanted to on results that I did not like. So does anyone have any questions on the pattern? I assume everyone has purchased it. Because of the way that this reverses in my software, there's somewhere in one of these corners where if you haven't purchased the pattern yet, the Etsy link is on a QR code. So if you're watching on your smart TV, you can just snap it, or same if you're, I guess, on your computer, you can grab it from your phone. Oh yeah, groceries. That's kind of funny. And actually, it's funny because what is it about grocery shopping where like you go do grocery shopping? Am I the only one that does this? And I noticed my dad started doing this too, where it's like, we'll do grocery shopping. That's like, hey, do you just want to go to Subway because like you're just sick of it and you don't even want to cook anymore once you got the groceries? I don't know. Maybe that's just an us thing. But anyway, there is a QR code. If you would like to use a discount, it is Holly15 for 15% off. There is also Ravelry. So if you prefer the Ravelry code, I can pop that one up there. So if you prefer Ravelry, same code, 15% off. personally, this is good. I didn't even use my own code. And now you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, but you also got the pattern for free. But I also really kind of wanted to see what the final product was. So I did pay full price. And also I wanted to support Olga because designing sounds like an awful lot of work. So I don't know. I never have a problem paying for well-written patterns. I think the worst is when it's like a $12 pattern and then it's so poorly written. That's happened once or twice to me before where that's just awful. Also, if you haven't had a chance and you would like to join the private Facebook group for Stitch is Gonna Stitch, this will eventually become a membership tier where the only way you could join, and I believe it is set up that way on Patreon, that you can join this group if you subscribe to a membership level. But because you're doing the crochet along, or you're just watching me live here, you can go ahead and scan that as well. Get in the Facebook group for free until October 19th. With the password is Waterlily, and if you forget it and you just put like Olga or something that's going to crochet along, something like that, I'll know what you mean and how you found me. So that is an option if you have not joined already. And those of you who have joined, you're awfully quiet. So let me know if there's something you want to see in a Facebook group. Hi, Lynn. If you haven't checked out Lynn's channel, she's got a lot of really interesting videos. And I am sorry, Lynn, I am horrendously behind on your videos. So I apologize. I try to catch them. And especially I was actually traveling this past week. So I'm horrendously behind on so many things and wondering why I did this to myself. So as you can see, we're actually in my dining room and not in one of our usual spots. That is because I was traveling and I had the bright idea of, well, if I'm going to be gone for a whole week, what if I want to film something just to break up the evening? So I took my tripod. Long story short, it is still in transit coming to me because my luggage got destroyed and everything had to get shipped home. So, you were on a first date with Yarn Bee, Soft and Sleek. Ooh, DK. I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if I've used that. And then I was like, actually, is that what I just used for the baby blanket? I don't remember. Pumpkin Paradise sounds great. I kind of want to look that up now. Except that if I try to look it up and show it on my screen, because my internet is not like one of the super high-end ones, I learned from my previous channel that if I try to do too many things on a live stream, it just doesn't go well. So anyway, so for those of you also coming in, we are just swatching today. My recommendation, if you wanted to go ahead and do your swatch, is to chain 35. I worked a few rows. So my original swatch was this one here, and that was on the 4.25 millimeter G hook. And I'm showing you the wrong side again, accidentally. So this is out of Knit Picks or We Crochet Brava Sport Weight. This clearly is heavier than sport weight, but I actually liked that the fabric for this, for going into like a fall piece, was going to be less holey. And because Furls does not have a 4.25 millimeter hook, and I have some past injury wrist issues, I also wanted to play around. I did drop down. I tried to do their version of an F hook, and I felt like this fabric is so dense, I would not really enjoy it. It has like no drape and for not much difference in the gauge. So then, of course, this morning I'm like, well, how much different is 0.25 going to be on my gauge if I go ahead and use their version of the G hook, the 4 millimeter? So if you're slightly off, chances are it's not going to make that much of a difference. I am a little bit of a stickler on some of that because, Madeline. Let's see. That's a good idea. I've also heard of people doing like with their swatches, like collecting them either throughout the year or however long and making like blankets or tote bags or scarves out of them, because usually you're making a 4-inch square. Personally, I will do more than 4 inches because I know it takes me a little bit to get in the groove of a pattern, especially something like this that is, you know, a little bit more involved. This is not hard by any stretch of the imagination. So I tend to make my swatches larger just so I have more area to measure and make sure that every time I measure, I know that's probably like a little, I don't say OCD. I think I just have gotten burned by having bad gauge before too many times. Madeline, I've used it and it's a bit fuzzy. Oh, the soft and sleek. Oh, you know what? Do they have like a chunky version of the soft and sleek? I think I know which one it is now. They might actually have some things around near me. So I made a bunch of little pumpkins last year, and I think I used soft and sleek. So I think that actually might be one of the same colors I'm using or have used in the past. I do like the fuzzy aspect, and I think that especially for a fall piece, that's going to make it really, really interesting. I am making a quilt type blanket with all my swatches and samples. Yeah. So if you feel like it's a waste, I get it, but I think it's worth just spending, especially in crochet for some reason. I am camp, I can crochet way faster than I can knit. I only know one person that has said the opposite. So for me, a swatch is going to take an hour or two at tops. So I would rather spend the hour or two to make the swatch than to spend 40 to 60 hours on something or more and then it doesn't fit right. Now, obviously, if it's like a blanket or something, if I'm not concerned and I know I have way enough yardage on it, I'm not swatching. So so great ideas. And so if you've started your swatch, oh, you know what? I forgot to turn off our starting soon from earlier when I was letting everybody get their ads and whatever out of the way. I also have heard that during the live stream there's a way to turn off ads and I did not find it. So I apologize if you get stuck with an ad during the midstream and I'm just going to have to look it up later because my original setup plan, I had to kind of improvise and do all this shuffling around. That was just something that slipped through the cracks. So I apologize if you get an ad. I did mean to turn it off for the purpose of while we're sitting here live. So hopefully it's not too obnoxious. So, and does anyone have any questions about any of the special stitches? Because I know that was something when I did the pattern test that I was very, very particular on when I was giving Olga feedback and saying, these need to be very, very explicit and or you need to provide the video tutorials, which she has done. So if you have the digital version of the pattern, you can just click it and it'll go there. Typically, I do print out my patterns. So that wouldn't work for that. And I did not print it out this time because, well, I've already done it. B, my computer and my printer don't love each other most days. And I just did not, with all of the other challenges, I went, I'll just have it up on my screen if I need to reference it. So does anyone have any questions about how to do anything for the special stitches, how to pick your size? I think she did a really great job. I think she spelled out the sizes way more than I would have thought to personally. And that was even that hasn't changed since the test pattern version that I saw. Hello, welcome in. So anyone who is still trickling in and out, feel free if you're doing the crochet along for the Waterlily top by Olga Poltava. We're just going to chain 35 if you're choosing to do a swatch. If you are going rogue and ignoring the swatch, that's totally fine too. I know a lot of times, especially if you're kind of already used to a yarn and you've done it before, it's easy to want to do that? Well, this is probably the first time I've been live in a really long time, probably almost a year. I always want to do more lives, and it's just very difficult to schedule. so, um, so welcome. And this is the first week of the crochet along, so there's plenty of time. Even anyone who finds this later, there's going to be 4 Sundays of the crochet along at 1 p.m. Sunday Eastern Daylight Time. We don't have any time changes to worry about during the course of this. I got really lucky when I scheduled it because I hadn't. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to check out yours. Thanks, Vima. So if anyone wants to go check out, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Vima? Vima sounds, I don't know why that feels more natural in my head. And coincidentally, the tripod that was missing, I can hear the FedEx truck now pulling up. So we're just going to hang out where we're at because that makes no sense to change the setup at this point. Okay, excellent. So I'm saying it correctly. Oh, all right. Well, it sounds like everyone has anyone gotten to a special stitch? I know like we're kind of, we're 20 minutes in, so maybe you're still chaining or just doing that first set of the setup rows. So I apologize if I'm trying to move this along. You know what? This is actually an excellent question, and I've actually considered this, especially since I'm doing a fall version. Although I had a very specific what I want this garment to be, so I'm going to stick with that. Would it be difficult to adapt the pattern for long sleeves? It depends on what you would want the sleeves to be, which I know sounds like a very loaded answer because currently it's constructed in 2 panels. And then, so the one that I had made, the pink one, is also in that box that's probably about to get dropped off on my front porch, because that was also one of the checked items that was in my luggage that got destroyed and needed to be shipped home. So unfortunately, it's fine. It's fine. We're all friends here. And we have 3 more weeks of this that I can show you all the fun stuff. So actually, this shirt wouldn't be terrible. So I don't know if you can see the seam on this. You do like a ribbing like this, and it kind of gives that little drop shoulder-ness to it. So if you wanted to do a ribbed sleeve and just make it like super long ribbing, first of all, I don't know what your patience level is, but I know when I got to the ribbing, and part of it was the excitement of it, is it just felt like the ribbing took forever, especially on the waistband one. Now, if you mean to do the shell pattern on the sleeves, I don't 100% know. I think I don't think it would be what you might want if you were to say, so say this is your sleeve edge. So I'm glad I have a couple swatches. Actually, I'm gonna switch this out. So let's pretend this is and I apologize if I'm hitting the microphone. This is the edge of my sleeve. And then I would not personally pick up and crochet in this length because then you're going to have 2 different directions of the shell pattern, and one's going to be going down when you put your arm down, and then the body is going to be going up, unless that's something that appeals to you. But I assume you would want to do it so that it comes together this way. I would probably do something where I would leave some for the cuff, figure out how many chains you would want to make for your sleeve, and then work it up and then sew it to the body. Although, and like I said, you would have to commit to that drop shoulder at that point, unless you are willing to do a lot of sleeve shaping, which I personally actually do not have a ton of experience in. particularly in crochet wear. So, which I know sounds ridiculous because I've been crocheting for forever, but I also came up crocheting when crochet garments were just they weren't as innovative, or I'm trying to be polite about this, and maybe I shouldn't try to be polite about this, but I just wasn't a fan of the styles of any kind of clothing in crochet when I was growing up and learning how to crochet. So thankfully, crochet has really taken off, especially since 2020, and we are getting so many awesome designers out of it. I would make it a separate seamed panel. Personally, I cannot come up with a way, like I said, unless you don't mind the shells going in different directions from each other. So maybe that's something like if you wanted to pick up and crochet and do a little bit just to get an idea if you like it or not, and also just go in with, if you go to me, if I go in with the mindset of this probably isn't going to work out, when if I do have to rip it out, or when I do have to rip it out, it's a lot less horrible to deal with, if that makes sense. So you almost have to have that like experimental mindset of, okay, well, let's see what happens. But yeah, that's what I would personally do, is I would do separate seamed panels for those. And then same thing, like I couldn't come up with a good way to do this in the round and get the same kind of result and structure as Olga did. So then you would also have this the seam running up here. So I don't know. No, I don't know if you can tell, they are play fighting back here. So I might actually have to go and mediate that really fast.
Spinning art from strings with style and flair.
Okay, that wasn't too bad. Ah, haven't watched yet because my oh, it's so funny because your kittens aren't allowing yarn time swatched. I'm assuming you meant swatched yet. That's totally fine. Um, I'm fluent in autocorrect. It's not a big deal. So I get it. Okay. I thought they were gonna start at it again, but they're they'll be fine. The thing is, Madeline wasn't feeling so hot the last couple weeks, so she's just not been feeling play fighty. So she's been pretty grumbly with Milo at this point. So, and of course we're live, we never know what's going to happen. And because I anticipate these things, um, here we have special guest Madeline. I don't know where Milo actually went. He probably went under the couch after he realized he was about to get in trouble for pestering her. So, so does anyone have any questions about their swatch right now? I know some of you aren't swatching or you're just working on whatever, and that's completely fine. I actually really just enjoy hanging out. So if you don't want to make the Waterlily top, that's totally okay. You can join every Sunday anyway. What I did want to do is, and I did a little bit of pre-math. So if you watched my yarn math video back in like March, this is going to look real familiar. So let's just say you're swatching and you either are struggling to get gauge or you didn't get gauge, but you happen to like the fabric, so that's what you want to roll with. So I've come up with a couple of scenarios and well, there's a little bit of glare, so I apologize. But if you read it through the instructions of her gauge, 3 horizontal repeats would be 4 inches. Now I happen to get gauge, but let's just pretend that I was measuring 3.75 inches for those 3 horizontal repeats. Then, oops, I'm gonna have to come back a little bit. So if I want to do a size 6, what I would do is make that, everything is backwards in the stream, and that is difficult for me. So I would just go ahead and use what her gauge is, divide by mine, and that's 1.06 is my ratio. So that's what I'm going to multiply by. So if the finished garment size for the size 6 is at 48 inches and I multiply it by our ratio, the next close, that would give us 50.88 inches. Now that's not what it's actually going to come out to, but that's the size that I would choose. So I would actually pick a size 7 and go up in size. Conversely, let's pretend you got 4.25 inches. Well, now you can go down a size and feel really great about yourself because you get to go down a size. And there are certainly more extreme examples of this, but typically it's just going to be 1 to 2 sizes that you're going to go up or down. Now, that is how I would do the math for the horizontal. And if you're concerned about the row gauge, the vertical, I would do the exact same math and use the ratio against however many rows your size calls for and come up with the closest for that pattern repeat. So I'm hoping that makes sense, but I wanted to give some value to, anyone doing this and understanding that, I don't know, everyone uses different yarn. We all crochet or knit differently. So hopefully that was helpful. And if not, by all means, let me know. Or if I need to hold it up longer, that's fine. Or you can always come back to this and screenshot whatever you wish to screenshot. That's totally fine. This is not, I'm not inventing math. I'm just, kind of showing us how to use the algebra that just, fell out of our heads in like 7th or 8th grade or 9th grade or whenever. And, they don't really tell you how to use it in a way that you actually care about. So I care about yarn and crochet, so I will help you with the math on yarn and crochet sorts of things. And that would also be true for knitting. So if you're knitting something else and you're like, my swatch is not working out, feel free to also go ahead and steal that methodology. Okay. It adds an extra level of fun when my fingers haven't read the pattern to know what they should be producing. That's actually funny that you said that because I remembered when I was doing the pattern test, I had issues reading and my hands were doing one thing and I'm like, I think her counts are off. And then I was like, oh no, no, no. My hands are not doing what it actually says to do. So, whoops. I think the most difficult thing about this project that I have learned, and I put difficult in air quotes because it's not a level of difficulty in technical aspect. It's more of a difficulty in, I don't know, I guess just getting a little bit too into a certain type of like crochet pattern. So On the shell, you can see, and you can read it in your pattern, that you have these crochet two chains in between the little like water lily petals. Do you know how many times I tried to put the chain two in between the shells and had to rip it out? And well, that was actually the one mistake when I did my pattern review that was like under my arm. There was one that I just never caught. And by the time I caught it, it was already, seamed, and I was wearing it, and I wasn't going to rip it out just for that. But I think that was probably the most difficult thing, is fighting the urge to add chain twos where chain twos should not exist. So, um, I mean, really that's it. But other than that, I think if you're even an adventurous beginner, or you've done a few things at this point and you know how to do a double crochet, single crochet, some chains, I think that Olga did a really nice job of spelling out how to do the special stitches, and this shouldn't be too much of a leap for you if you're feeling adventurous. And by all means, if you have any questions on the special stitches while we're moving along, since those of you who are swatching might be getting to that point, just, throw up your hand, and I've figured out a little bit of a setup to make that happen if we need to. Yarn Doc, I'm sorry, I missed it. That's hysterical. An extra, an expert frogger. Oh, yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's funny because either I have endless patience or I have zero patience, and I think that's why I had such a huge like timeout bin or frog pond that just built up, because I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, I really enjoyed. Yeah, I thought it was a really well written pattern. Um, yeah, I know. I scheduled this thinking they would be in nap time, which they sort of were until not. Um, Barocco Vera. I don't know if I know that. And again, I apologize, because if I try to share my screen, I have learned that. Oh, okay. Nice. That should be actually pretty similar to what she recommended. Her patterns are always so good and well written. I've only purchased two. One was the basic sock pattern. So I know probably a handful of you have found me from the whole sock pattern drama. And then I went, well, how terrible is this pattern? I'm got to find out for myself, because that's who I am as a person. I agree. I really didn't have any issues whatsoever with that one. Um, this one, as a pattern tester, there were times I made comments where I was more of, if you are calling this an intermediate pattern, I have no issue with some of the things that in her first, well, it wasn't even her first draft, because I know she had already ran it past an editor and a grader. Grading meaning like the sizing up and down for all the different sizes, because 11 sizes is incredibly generous. I know that's like a whole thing of size inclusivity, and don't don't personally, here's a hot take. I don't personally think that it is every designer's responsibility to do that many sizes. It's fantastic when they do, but I think especially Olga's a pretty seasoned, experienced designer, but for some of the newer people coming up, I don't want them to get too shied away because they can only kind of do their own grading for a few sizes, because I forget who I was watching, but she mentioned that she wanted to do a pattern or something and then went to hire someone to help do all the different sizes, and it was like an eye-watering amount of money, which I believe because I purchased a book that specifically talks about pattern grading, and it makes my head explode. So I haven't really sat down to do my own thing. Um, yeah, yeah, the drama was I here's the thing. The whole drama thing, I didn't go that far back on the other person's channel. I'm not gonna get too much into it now. But apparently someone who had dug a little bit further back had tried to do this several times with larger designers, and I think it was like an attempt to put themselves on the map, so to speak, by um, speaking poorly of the patterns. It's hard to say for sure. I wasn't there. I wasn't inside her head, but I do kind of feel that way a little bit because also a few months prior to that, I don't know if anyone I'm sure most people have heard of Betty McNitz at this point. There was a whole drama that happened at like the end of last year-ish to early this year. And it just seemed like it was like, I don't know why internet clout is even a thing. Like, be so for real. Are we in middle school? Number one. But number two, it just felt so weird that people were trying to take down like it took her pattern, what, 6 or 7 years to really blow up into that 6-day star pattern blanket, and then people are just were trying to be ridiculous and piling on. So, I think the part that's terrible about that is we can say, well, this other person was like a small 2,000 subscriber channel, so why would you even listen to them? But then this is why I think Olga was very smart to get ahead of it because of how quickly that like pile on mentality bullying really got out of hand. Yeah. I actually really wanted to do her crochet along. She's doing a September 6-day star blanket crochet along, and it was just I just had too much going on this month. So alas, my 6-day star blanket that I purchased the yarn for back in November probably will not actually get made until this November. So unfortunately. Okay. Just going to go ahead and pop that up for those still trickling in. So if anyone would like to join the private Facebook group, it's not very large right now, which coincidentally for you, it was probably kind of nice because you'll get a lot more of my attention than if it were a huge, large Facebook group. Um, so, feel free if that's something that you're into. I know a lot of people really aren't into Facebook anymore. And I know like the younger crowd seems to like Discord, which I personally don't. I don't know what my problem is that I don't like Discord. It just presents very, I don't want to say clunky to me. It's very guy. I don't know. Maybe it's just my personal preference. Probably because, Facebook's been around longer and so I know how to use it better. And then for anyone who might be joining us on the replay later in the week, thanks for joining. Just curious where you might be stitching from. If you're relatively new, I'm in Northeast Ohio, and it's actually a really nice day. I heard a lot of people mowing their lawns earlier, and I might mow my lawn later. I don't know. Also, what is going on with fall? Because why is it still going to be like 80 degrees all week? I would love to know what is going on with that. Oh, maybe that's why I don't get it. Like Discord is for gaming, which I know is like a thing where you can do like gaming streams together or something. So like that I guess maybe kind of makes sense that it's just more geared towards gamers and it feels a lot more like I think it's Twitch, which I also, is a little bit beyond me. It's getting cold here in Yardak. You're in Germany, correct? You might be a little bit north of Ohio. I can't remember. Also, Ohio, yay! Also, I know probably everyone's like crocheting along or whatever. And if you see another channel on here, by all means, feel free to go check them out as well or save them. Pacific Northwest, Portland, Oregon. Heard all your neighbors. Yeah, it's one of those things where like when everyone does it all at once, it can be a little bit much. But I do also burn yard waste from time to time. It's a little breezier than I would like for that today, so I'm probably not going to do any yard waste burning. And it's just I don't even have a lot, honestly. But that sounds like the perfect fall day. Just like I mean, I guess the leaves have been falling because it was so dry that the trees around here are just stressed and doing whatever they could. Oklahoma still very hot here too. I know. Oh, yarning problem. I'm gonna have to check that channel out too. And hopefully I remember to go back and like link everybody's channels because this is really a lot of fun. I always feel bad because I try to, if I talk about someone, put them in my description boxes and then inevitably I'll realize I forgot someone along the way like several days later and then I feel bad. So whoops. I'm getting better. So those of you who are on YouTube, you understand like it's such a learning curve of everything and you just work on getting a little bit better every time. I am more tick of the rock. Oh, got it. Sorry. Needed to get there. Because I know over there that's another whole thing where it's like, um, you can't say the other platform necessarily without getting suppressed. Too scared to get channel going. You know, it's kind of funny because I feel like was spending more time on Instagram than what I was getting on a return versus YouTube, to be perfectly honest, as far as like engagement, viewership, that sort of thing. And I don't know. I I feel like Instagram is its own art, but honestly, I always say like if you're not sure about YouTube, it says, yeah, practice makes something like just honestly just jump right on in. If you go back to the first few videos of this channel, and I'm going to preface this with this is not my first channel that I started, and it's the only one I've stuck with. So, yay me. But I really wish. Oh, something fell. Oh, that was my math board. So, if I would have like saved those channels or at least saved the videos from those channels, oh my gosh, horrible. Truly, truly horrible. Even the first ones on this channel were a little like, really? I feel like I should have known a little bit better by channel number 4. I don't know. I 100% agree with this, Yarn Doc. I also had trouble balancing all of the socials, and I tend to focus on YouTube. So I pulled back from Insta and, the very popular short form platform out there based out of China because it was getting to be too much. And I felt like instead of doing many things okay, I would rather do one thing really well and then start adding things in as I got more comfortable. And truthfully, I don't even do that many shorts on here anymore because, well, first of all, I have to have a very specific idea of what I want it to be. Also, since you're watching me, you probably know I yap and chat a lot, and that's what I prefer out of these crafty videos is feeling like I'm hanging out with someone. So naturally, that's what I tend to do myself. So cutting it down to short things or coming up with short little skit things is truly a talent I do not possess. I don't want to say I don't possess, but I really have to be in the brain space and have like a really solid lightning bolt moment, or I have to go, hey, you know what? This video had some really interesting spots, and then just be able to pick and edit those out very quickly. Otherwise, I would spend more time than what it's worth to make like 3 whole cents off of a YouTube short that would, go viral or whatever, or perform well. Shorts to me isn't the payoff that I think most people think it is, unless you are really dedicated to making your channel mostly shorts. And I've heard the argument of, well, that's how you get more subscribers, but the shorts subscribers and your long form subscribers are not necessarily the same people. So I would rather just have a lower, more quality subscriber count for the types of videos that I truly enjoy making and feel like they're worth my time. And again, because I like to settle in and chat with you and make friends on YouTube, to me, long form just makes more sense. Why, thank you. I appreciate that you like watching me. so, so yeah, it's been a journey. And that's the other thing is like if you are feeling like afraid to start your own channel, I hate to say this, like first of all, remember some of this you don't see what other people have gone through. Like if you saw the first 3 channels and how awful they were and how I've like paid my dues in that, and then even the earlier videos on this channel that were a little rough around the edges. And then then I could compare myself to someone who's a lot more like polished and peppy and edity. And I feel like part of it is like that's not totally my style, which is why I kind of go in the middle. I like to do fun little edits here and there, but I don't like it to be all over the place. I don't know. But truly, like if you're afraid, just put up a video, and when you realize like no one's gonna watch those first couple of videos, and maybe 4 people, and one of them is you because you wanted to see how it looked on your TV or whatever, like it's fine. And then I feel like, Lynn, have you been with me since? I feel like you've been with me probably one of the longest that I recognize. Um, Kenya, that is super awesome. So I would not recommend doing an acrylic version of this if you are doing the crochet along. I would stick to the cotton recommended in Kenya because I'm assuming it's just hot all the time. But this certainly would be a fantastic top for that. And again, those of you still trickling in, as we're probably going to be wrapping this up in about 10 minutes or so, I don't have my pink version. It is still in transit because I was traveling this past week and my luggage has not totally caught up to me. So that's why we're in my dining room, because I don't have a tripod, and also why I don't have my original finished piece to show you. which is also unfortunate because I was going to use that to kind of show the modifications that I am planning on making. So for me personally, I didn't think I would like that crew neck ribbing. And I've actually decided to leave it on and I haven't taken it off because the more I wore it and the more it got washed, the more relaxed. It didn't feel so like I have a thing about tight necks and necklines. I don't know. I assume in a past life something happened. I even have like a birthmark in here. So like maybe they claim birthmarks are something that happened to it in a past life. I don't know if that's true. But yeah, so the more it's gotten drapier with wear and with washing, I think it's fine, especially since I don't have a whole lot of that kind of neckline in my wardrobe. But I was torn because I also wanted a square neck version because before I put that ribbing on, I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of want to just leave it. But now that I've gotten used to the other one and I don't want to pull it out, what am I supposed to do? And because I knew I had loads of this, I want to say 20 skeins total because when they were clearancing this out some time ago, it was like $2 a ball. So I had this crazy notion of what if I get enough for at least a blanket and then also to do a sweater. And so I have a load of it and I guess I'm going to use it up finally. It's probably been in my stash about 3 or 4 years at this point. So I also think when I first wanted to do the pattern test, the garment that was in my mind was the original. Olga did a video about her design process, and it was like I don't remember if hers was a boat neck, but I do have one boat neck sweater, and it's that cream colored one. And now that it's getting like huge on me, I basically have none because it's it's gotten large to where it's almost unwearable because my bra straps will show at work and stuff. And, I don't want to do that. I am not into showing straps at work. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do a boat neck, which means I'm going to have very little, if no, actual shoulder stitches. If I do shoulder stitches, it is simply going to be for the purpose of demonstrating to anyone that might need a little bit of help along the way in the crochet along on how to do those. But I think that was also very well laid out. So I wanted to do more of a boat neck. And then also her ribbing came up like to here. So it was a nice wide ribbing. And I just thought, wow, like it's just such an interesting shape that also I don't have in my wardrobe, but doesn't feel like too much of a departure from my personal style. And I was questioning this choice when I decided to do that because that bottom band ribbing really isn't that wide. But by the time the excitement of this thing is almost done has arrived and you're doing this ribbing and you're just stitching and stitching and stitching, and it feels like ribbing that's never going to end. And so to make that even wider and make it even more endless ribbing and stitching and crocheting, I was starting to question that. And then I went, well, I have put knit ribbing on crochet before, which I did on my hexagon cardigan. So if people don't mind, I'm going to, it's not even cheating ribbing because it's knit ribbing. It's just, I'm not using a crochet ribbing as it's called for in the pattern. I do actually enjoy how both types of ribbing look in their own way. But for my own sanity, for that wider band, I think I'm just going to do pick up and knit. And I also really like to intermingle the two crafts. I think that's a lot of fun when we see patterns that have both knit and crochet. I understand why there's not that many because most people tend to prefer one over the other, but I agree. And it's interesting that you say it's a beautiful color because the other thing is when I got this, so the color name is literally coral. And I don't remember if this is similar to how it looked on screen, and I ignored it thinking, well, it must be how it is on screen, but it's called coral. And so I thought it was going to lean slightly more salmon pinky, and this is almost more of a rusty coral, but it really grew on me. And for the purpose of having a fall top, I think it's going to be great. So So those are my modifications that I'm doing. And then I figured the spring top, if I do another one in the spring, um, I have like that pistachio linen colored yarn that I still need to frog out and steam and everything. That's going to be real fun. I think I'm going to make that one the square neck and then go a little bit deeper on the neckline on that one than what is called for in the pattern. So um, my goal was with the original pink one that I had made was just kind of getting an idea of how many rows I actually need versus what the pattern called for to have the wider ribbing because I won't need as many pattern rows and I'm just going to need miles of ribbing. It's going to feel like. So this hour went by really fast, except that I do have things to do. I don't mind going over on time if I can. I don't know that that's going to happen much, if at all, this month, unfortunately. So if there are any last minute questions, comments, concerns, I'll leave you with your swatch. And obviously, like, feel free to go ahead and actually get started because once you do the swatch for your garment, you can, and if you're happy with the fabric, if you want to go back, I'll go back and timestamp where I did the math earlier of if your gauge is off at all and how to make any of those accommodations and which size to choose. Typically, it's going to be one up or one down on size, depending on how extreme your gauge difference is and what you want for your final garment. But yeah, feel free to go ahead and get started. I think next week we'll probably just be kind of cruising along with our panels, to be honest, in my estimation. We'll get a feeler for where everyone is at, I guess, next week to see. I think 4 weeks is going to be enough. I don't expect everyone to all like keep up with the whole 4 weeks, but what I've learned in crochet alongs and knit alongs is there's going to be a few that will, I don't know, someone might finish their whole garment by the end of this week. And then everyone else is like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up. But like, no, don't stress yourself out. It's okay if you don't obviously finish your garment in the 4 weeks that the crochet along is going on. It's more the fun of we're all doing the same thing together. And again, if you want to go ahead and join the Facebook group, I believe that is the QR code that I still have up. Let me just double check. It is. So, you can always ask questions throughout the Facebook group. I am someone who will actually be active in Facebook groups. I know I've been frustrated by that before with, other content creators and their private groups or whatever, where you're like, I thought you said like this is your group, but you're never actually in here. So I will actually be active in that group. So if anything comes along, or if it takes you more than the 4 weeks, like that's fine. We'll be around. And also, like, feel free to share your swatches in your project photos in that Facebook group. If anyone has figured out how to actually use my community tab so that you can actually do your own posts onto my community wall, that would also be super fun. I think I'm just like tech dense because I feel like I keep hitting the button where it says, yes, please allow this thing to happen on my channel. So if I try to use like my personal YouTube account, I don't know what I'm doing wrong that I'm not posting to my own wall on YouTube. So Maybe I probably need to watch a YouTube tutorial on how to do that, which is sad. Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to take the quietness in the comments as everyone is just moving along on their swatch, or if you've gone ahead and just started your garment, that you are doing fine. If you run into any roadblocks, again, feel free to pop into the Facebook group. I also put the link down in the description box. I did remember to do that this morning. Um, so just pop in there with any questions, or if you just want to wait until next Sunday, um, I imagine I'll have some amount of my garment done. But again, this is more support for anyone who wants to do this and might need a little bit of extra guidance on their first garment or their first Olga pattern, or I guess largely that we are all making the same top and just having fun. Or if you're not making the top and you're just popping in on the lives to have fun, that's okay too. And, oh, yeah, you also have a great week. I think I am probably going to see how the Browns are doing. I resisted the temptation to have it up on my phone, so that, I'm not feeling one way or another until I get off the live stream. So enjoy the rest of your week. Again, feel free to pop in, or even later in the week if you want to pop comments down in here. If you're not a Facebook person, that's totally okay too. If you haven't noticed, Olga is also very active in my comments. So if you're really lucky, you might get support directly from her. Also, she is actually really good at supporting her patterns, because I know even the crochet sock one, I don't even think I had a question. I think it was just I was reaching out to her in the immediate of what was going on at that time, and she's very good about getting back to people in her email. So with that, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and as always, I cannot wait to visit with you in the next one. Bye.